Hey, Ricky, you know what's awesome?
What's that?
Phantasm, boy. Oh, man. So, what the hell is going on in that movie, huh?
Everything, man, everything. I've got this theory that all movies, all things lead back to Phantasm. It's just mine. I made it up. So
you might have to prove it.
okay.
I'm joking.
Oh man, if there's one guy that absolutely terrified me growing up, it was the tall man. And I can trace it back to why it was the impact, because first thing I remember ever scaring me was Christopher Lee as Dracula, because I grew up seeing the Universal monsters. They were black and white. I was young. I could handle it. Christopher Lee in color with the scleral lenses, the blood coming out of the mouth, terrified me. So I figured out as a kid, well, if Dracula's coming in my room and he's trying to get to my neck, I'll sleep with my hands like this. And he can't get his head in here and get to my neck. Problem solved.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, I mean, I still sleep with my arms up like this because I've done it so long as a kid. It's just But second thing that scared me was the doll from Trilogy of Terror.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Here's a toy. Here's a doll attacking people. To a kid that's, I don't know, maybe 4 at the time.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Yeah. Luckily, I'd never seen a doll like that before, so I knew that, well, it's not in my house. I ain't got to worry about it.
I've seen some amazing replicas, though.
Yeah, I have too, but you know what? Not in my house.
They'll sell it to you without the chain. Without the chain, they'll sell it to you. You know,
not happening. Not happening.
You have to look at it and make sure it doesn't have the switch on the back that switches it to evil.
That's it. You got this doll set to evil. You know.
But after that, I mean, it was the tall man, because here is, I never put it together in my head before about Frankenstein and the little girl. Maybe it just didn't register when I was little, but this is the first time that I've seen a scary guy chasing a kid that was close to my age. And that was just terrifying to me, because just like the kid, you had no reason or idea of why he would be chasing this kid, which is pretty much what scares me the most. It's one thing to be chased by somebody because you did something wrong. It's another thing to be chased by somebody just because.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a Farrah Fawcett hairdo back in those days too, like a good old Mike there? You know.
No, I didn't, man. I had the bowl cut.
It's not feathered enough, man. Come on now, you know.
Yeah.
I think the first exposure I got to Phantasm was, there used to be a channel on cable, and it was a video. It was a movie preview channel, and so it would just run down kind of, coming soon, what was coming to theaters, and my grandparents used to watch. It's like kind of like people with CNN now, where it's just like you have the news on with the scroll. My grandparents used to have the movie preview channel on, so it would just be like everything that was coming out in theaters, and then it had like the little segments where it was like behind the scenes. It's like, oh, here's so and so in makeup, on Princess Bride or whatever, like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing the preview for Phantasm 2, and the ball is back, and it's running around through the hallway chasing people around, and that scene where he's like, it's just a dream, and then he's like, pops the door down, he's like, no, it's not, and it's just like scary as hell, and it's like, what is going on here? Now, strangely enough, I watched Phantasm 2 without seeing the first one. Like, it was just what it came out, and I had no idea what was going on. And I guess we talked last week about, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and you really don't get a sense of what the first one's about by watching that one. It's its own thing. Yeah. you might know a little bit more of what's going on in two by watching the first one first, but you don't get any inkling of what the first one's about by watching the second one. It's just weird. So I remember watching Phantasm 2 and being like, I have no idea what's going on. It is so weird. So then watch the first one, and didn't a whole lot of questions get answered.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing about part 2 is they were really trying to make it a story to where if you didn't see the first one, didn't really matter, because the introduction of the girl and all that stuff, that was, the second one it's almost like Evil Dead 2, right? It's kind of a retelling, but it's with a budget. So, Universal got their hands on it because of all these sequels that were coming out that were doing so well. Hey, here's one in the MGM locker. Let's see if we can dust it off and do something with it. But yeah,
they have the whole last time on Phantasm opener to Phantasm 2.
Yeah, right,
so
right.
In a way, it's kind of all laid out that tall man's a thing, and that the Jawas, I'm going to call them Jawas because they did it first before Star Wars. And I think he owes Coscarelli some money. That's all I'm saying about that one.
Yeah.
But you get the semblance that Jodie's gone, and that Mike and Reggie are a thing. So you could easily go into the second movie watching the recap of the first movie. I love the first film, but like me and like Billy, I think part 2 is more readily available to people, whether it be on television or be on the great VHS box cover that you've seen on the shelves. Because I saw Phantasm 1 way later, and I remember going to the video store and buying their copy off the shelf. Because I did, it's like the Third Rock from the Sun thing, where they didn't realize that Arthur 2 was a sequel to Arthur 1,
Yeah.
It's a great episode. I digress though, but a lot of folks saw Phantasm 2 first, and I think that was the reason that it's probably their favorite. And
it's the VHS boom, right? I mean, it was the heyday of VHS. It was new. It was a sequel, which really didn't matter, right? When we were young, it didn't matter if it was part 2, part 3. You saw the cover. It was a newer movie. You looked at the cool stuff on the back. That's all you needed. It didn't matter if you hadn't seen the other one before. You just grabbed it and went because, that's what you did with VHS.
And I think that saying Phantasm 2 is my favorite now, which it's not. Just people love it. It's not my favorite, because with new eyes and watching the context of the other films, it has become a lower end film for me. Lower on the list than a lot of them, and that's not even a diss to them,
Well, I think it's because the backstory probably like I do as well, and there's too many fingers in the pie with that one. I mean, when you're going to take Michael out of it and put this other character in there because he just wasn't sellable enough. I mean, the whole reason I wanted to see it is because I grew up relating to Michael in the first one,
I mean, even that's not a big hurt point for me. I love Michael Baldwin and everything. But the part of I don't like because they changed this one actor out. It's not even that; it's more of a content thing than anything else. And
well, like I said, it's kind of a retelling, right? I mean, what do they? You've got some different characters in there, and you get the whole pumping the tall man full of embalming fluid, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I still see what you mean because. Where is it really going that we haven't already seen? The only thing you're seeing different is some of the effects. So this is, again, Coscarelli, which we just talked about Beastmaster on the last episode, too. This is kind of where he comes out of Beastmaster and does this. You talked about those creatures, right, from Beastmaster that look very Fulci-ish, right? It looks like a Lucio Fulci film there for about 15 seconds. And this is him taking the old platform and dusting it off. He's got some credibility because of Beastmaster. Universal bites, but they're pretty restrictive on a lot of things they can do. But I don't know. I think overall it's still pretty awesome. I mean, I'm gonna defend the first movie my whole life
Oh,
because you know
Just,
it's
just the work, the blue collar work that went into the first movie. I mean,
yes,
he literally borrowed money from his parents to make it the movie, and it took I forget how many years to make the movie. A couple of years
yeah,
to make the movie
yeah,
because they kept running out of money, so they go back and do it again, go back and do it again. You know,
yeah.
and it's pretty flawless though. You can't really tell like Mike has aged in certain scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Just so much about it. I mean, you end up loving Reggie, which if you have to get technical about it, Bruce Campbell is kind of a rip off of Reggie in a
Yeah.
way.
There was a lot of those
Well, not Bruce Campbell, Ash.
Ash.
Yes, Ash.
Well,
Yes.
especially in Phantasm 2. Well,
Yeah.
they definitely do have the bottle. I don't remember if it was of ash or if it was of fluid or whatever. That's got Sam Raimi's name on it in
Yeah, yeah.
in the embalming room, and then Reggie's dressed as Ash with the chainsaw. You know, like you know.
And of course, there's always a bigger chainsaw, y'all. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Which again probably ties back into the whole Texas Chainsaw 2 thing as well, right? I mean, so there's everybody kind of had the same mindset going on. I was thrilled when they decided they're going to make a part 2, and I still like it a lot. I like all of them in the series except for Ravager, which I know why they did it, but I don't know, man. Just in retrospective of watching it, it's pretty weak.
Well, I just marathoned the first 3 for this,
Yeah.
to bone up for the show. And
Yeah.
it's strange because you mentioned that the third one is probably, people call it the weakest. I actually enjoyed the third one quite a bit.
A lot of fun with it.
I mean,
3 is a blast.
I mean, that was probably the most fun of the 3 of them. It's kind of, because horror movies being what they are, it's like you step from the first one. Okay, well, this is the core of the story, so let's move forward a little bit and try to expand some characterization. Let's expand the lore or whatever.
Yeah.
Part 3, it was like, okay, well, now all that's established. Let's just
run with it.
Let's run, yeah. And so you've got this.
I love the ending of part 3 because you are left in it's almost like Luke getting his hand cut off in Empire, right?
Mm-hmm.
This thing happens, you're just like, holy crap, it's going to end right here. And then of course you get the great, hey, don't believe everything you see, Reggie,
Yep.
Well, there's that. There's also, I mean, there's the Psycho Home Alone kid, which was freaking cool.
It's awesome. I mean, you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
So dressed the same as Kevin with the little red hoodie and everything. Like everything is, but it's just like what I mean, but it's also that adult slash. I mean, Kevin wasn't. If you think about Home Alone in real life, well, first of all, the stuff that he did to the bandits would have killed them for the most part.
Sure.
Like those traps would have killed them. At the same time, anybody who legitimately was in fear for their life would have like taped knives onto some of those traps and made them more deadly than they were. And so then, it's almost a catharsis watching Phantasm 3 where he's got like the frisbee with the
razor blades
on it, and like, dude, when he flings that tomahawk and just cleaves that chick's head right in half, and you're just
so good.
At this point in the movie, you have no idea what's going on. Like the first 2 movies are like nonsensical fever dreams, and then here's some kid with a tomahawk just like whoop, and you're just like, well, I almost rewound it. It was like, but then they clutch up back to her and she's got that thing buried in her skull and falls over. I'm like, wow. So like I had a blast with part 3. It was awesome.
I love the fact that it's just like, like in Home Alone, it's just this kid that happens to the lay of his house. He's doing this to survive, this kid. And he's been at this for a long time. You can tell he's got bodies buried in the yard. Well, graves. They dug them all up. The lurkers, as he calls them. And I love the fact that this is a scrappy kid. He's just kind of like this scrappy kid, but you know what? He can rule some butt, and he's been doing this for a long time. So because he had to, his father died, and his mother was taken, so he was forced to be on his own. So I like the backstory of him, and I like the character. He's not just like this crappy attic kid.
Yeah, that was one thing too. Whenever he trapped the dude in the pit, and then the camera pans back, he's like, "When I get out of here, you're in trouble," just like a Joe Pesci. And then the camera pans back, and he drops the hammer on him. Just done. You're not getting out of there to bother me anymore, sir. It's so cool.
Yeah, I just and moving on from that to part 4, I know that Bo Ransdale is definitely not a fan of part 4, but I like it, man. I mean, this is a point in the career where they had a chance to try to wrap things up. Angus was in pretty bad health at this point, so there was all this laying around footage that they cut out from the first one that they found a way to rekindle and make some other part of the story out of it. And I think for what they did, it's actually pretty cool. I love
you saying it sounds kind of minimal, like just listening to this podcast. But if you watch it, you watch the scenes that are intercut in the movie, it's edited flawlessly. It is really,
it's done really well. And what it does, this is the brilliance of part 4 that people don't understand. Well, maybe they understand, but the big thing you walk away with, and this is why I love Phantasm. I love it because it's just like X-Files, because you get an episode, it answers 2 or 3 questions, but then you've got 15 more questions afterwards, right? Because it just keeps opening Pandora's box. Part 4, Michael has seen what's on the other side. He finds out how the tall man travels through these dimensions, and he ends up going back to when the tall man first appeared on the planet. And he comes into the same dimension that the tall man's in as older Michael. They see each other. The tall man sees Michael grown, and he backs away and goes back into the dimension. And the tall man says, "And so it begins." So the whole going back to the first movie is the tall man seeing him as a grown kid or a grown man and going back in time to stop him so he doesn't reveal what the secret is. I mean,
that's pretty rad.
It works, man.
There's a lot of known unknowns in these films, and
yeah,
I think the people that don't understand that are the ones that just don't get it, because the whole point of Phantasm is, and they say it throughout the series, is never trust what you see. You don't know what's real. Right. So the fact that he tosses away the 4-barrel shotgun in part 2 and he gets it back immediately in part 3 is not that far of a stretch. It's not that far of a stretch, because you can't trust what you see, and they make it a point of saying that throughout the series.
He might have thrown it away. He might not have. I mean, just like with his brother dying in the first one, even though you're just told that he died.
You really don't come to the realization until the 4th one that Jody is in fact dead, and it did happen.
Yeah. I think to me,
it's much more important than people think. Oblivion is amazing to watch. It's much more important than I hated it when it came out. I hated it. But I watch it now with more critical eyes and more eyes open about what the series is all about. And Oblivion is towards the top of my list of the best Phantasm films.
I agree. Because there's so much in there that answers, maybe not answers, but it solidifies what has happened throughout all of these.
It gives you some exposition, but not enough to say, here's everything laid on the table. Yeah. Because even at the end of the series, where they're literally driving off into the sunset, which I love. Whatever. Yeah. It is what it is. You don't get all the answers. You're never going to get them all. That's the great part of the series, that it's not a series where you say, "Oh, this is terrible. What about this, that, and the other?" You're not meant to know everything in every film. You're not meant to know everything in this series. And if you don't get that, you're probably not going to enjoy as much as we do.
Right.
Well, and see, again, for me, because again, I saw Phantasm 2 in the late 80s, early 90s when it first came out. I saw Phantasm 1 in not too long after that. I don't remember watching 3 until the other day, so I've probably seen only the first 2. And I know it's, Phantasm, as a horror fan, it's like that's sacrilege. But I mean, there's so many movies out there, and there's so many series, and all of that. But for me, I very much got a Jacob's Ladder vibe. Like,
Yep.
I thought that Mike was just dead. He died in the car accident with Jody, and this is him either as a ghost or in a coma or something, fighting that realization. Because everything's so dreamlike and it's weird, and there's nothing that's what it seems. I mean, it's very much a dream. I mean, this is a direct. I mean, there are scenes like the janitor scenes and stuff in Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff that are just like right out of here. And we'll talk about that in the next segment after the commercial, like all the influences and stuff. But there's so much stuff that's just like, it's dream logic, and it's non sequitur, and it doesn't have to make sense. And that's when you're said, I think everything comes back around to Phantasm, because at the end of part 3, whenever he opens his eyes and he's a sphere, I'm like, well, I kind of thought this the whole time. I didn't know he was a sphere, but like whatever madcap world that they're living in, where like Reggie blew up his house in, at the beginning of part 2, but then he comes home and it's still there, and then it blows up again. Like those sorts of things where it's just like, we just saw it. Like we just saw it blow up. And so like for me, I was like, he's gonna realize he's dead. He was gonna realize that, and especially Tall Man's like, you think you go to heaven when you die? No, you come to us. Okay, well, he's pretty much in hell or purgatory or something in that realm. And so like that's what I got from it, and it never let up. I mean, I still thought that coming out of part 3. So I mean,
I love the beauty of, and it's kind of like, I'm glad you brought up Nightmare on Elm Street, because I've got a whole episode that I did of House of Wax that is how much Nightmare on Elm Street rips off the original Phantasm. But I digress on that. I love the idea that in order for this to work, the Tall Man already knows everything you're gonna do before you do it. So even the scenes where he lets you kill him, I mean, you've seen the scene. It's the second one, right? Where we just embalmed him, and then he comes out later and picks up the body that's been embalmed and throws it back through the portal.
That's it. That's the very beginning of part 3. Yeah.
Part 3, right? Yeah, so he knows what is going to happen before it happens.
I mean, it's the Matrix before the Matrix.
You're right.
But not in the computer. This is like interdimensional stuff,
And you got the Terminator type story where he's actually going back in time to stop the kid, so he can continue dominating these planets like he's been doing.
I got to talk about the Angus Scrimm swagger real fast, because that's all this film is. It's kind of like David Prowse. His voice isn't there, but it wouldn't be Vader without him. It would be Phantasm without Angus Scrimm, and he does a great video. An old Fangoria Weekend of Horrors. I think it's on YouTube somewhere.
Yep.
Where he just says like, "Okay, I'm in this film, but I have like 8 lines, and that's it." But the presence is there, and this is what's the most important about the series is that, Angus, Rory Guy, a guy who wrote liner notes for albums, didn't want to pretend to be an actor at all. He's just this imposing figure, but if you ever got to meet him in person, he's like the nicest man on the planet.
Super nice,
man. Yeah. But you're terrified at the same time. Like, you see, shake the hand of Tall Man. Like, I don't know, but it's nicest guy on the planet, man. He's heavily missed.
It's the eyebrow. It's like he's got the most talented eyebrow. It's so great.
So I don't know if you know the story, Billy, but you may have. I don't know where he was telling the story at, but he actually wrote the liner notes for the Beatles' first album.
Oh, wow.
And talked about how they were not going to make it.
If you listen to Quincy Jones, they'll tell you why they weren't going to make it, okay?
But yeah, I mean, the Tall Man to me he's the ultimate baddie in my book. He's so intelligent, controls time controls everything, right? And his job is he's Thanos, right? He just goes from planet to planet, makes them all his slaves, and moves on. Yeah. I mean, for a horror movie, that's a big leap because it's not just some dude in a hockey mask or something that simple. It's planet domination this guy's doing, which kind of takes it out of the horror realm, right? That's more sci-fi. So I think that's why I've always liked it because, you know me, show me something different. Man, if Phantasm's not different, I don't know what is.
The balls,
Oh yeah.
just, I mean, so some of those, I mean, because they're all different. Like you have the knife that sticks out the front, but even that knife doesn't even dig that deep. That's what's
Right.
great. What's so great about it is like it digs deep enough that it would have killed you had it, like if you would have just laid there with that knife stuck in your head, sure you would have died. But
Yeah.
no, it pops out with the drill, bzzz, and then the straw and shoots it out the back, and it's just like, man, that is so cool.
I have to tell you a story about this. So, my daughter had some friends over spending the night. This is back when she's in high school. Some kids are over, and something was on TV, Sci-Fi Channel, whatever, and it was some scene out of a movie that this kid thought was scary. My daughter said, "That's not scary. Watch this." And she popped in that scene of the ball hitting the janitor in the first movie. And I don't think that kid ever came to our house again.
With the classic, still very orangish red blood, the Italian blood from the 60s and 70s. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I love that color in HD.
The relieving himself too was kind of the thing that you didn't see a lot in movies, where you see the urine kind of pouring out everywhere after he
Oh, God,
dies.
yeah.
So, and again, so you introduce this sphere, right, that can do this to a person. You go to the second movie where you've already been introduced to these silver ones, and you see the guy that is scared of the gold one, right? So you're thinking, wow, if the silver one's bad, this thing must be really bad. Well, this guy has one sphere, got him stuck to a door, right? The gold one's coming at him, so the gold one is so bad, he's going to cut his own hand off to get away from it.
Mhm.
I mean, the way that Coscarelli sets that stuff up just makes you go, holy crap.
Because
Are
yeah,
you
if it's-
willing? Are you willing to do this to
Because
get away from that?
whatever it's going to get you with is going to be worse than it drilling your head, your face with the drill.
And that scene where it goes in that guy's back and it comes up through him and tries to come out of his mouth, it's just incredible. It's incredible.
They can upgrade it for sure. I'm sorry. Yes.
That's all right. I love the fact that later on, maybe part 3, maybe Oblivion, I'm getting a little fuzzy right here. When they have to use the ball to open the key to the door, right? They use it as a keyway.
That's part 2, I think. I think it's part 2.
I think so too, because it is because he pulls it out and it hits the tall man in the head and starts drilling,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
and he just takes it and crushes it.
Oh yeah.
So we've established the power these things have, and then you see the power the tall man's got.
He's like,
It's
don't forget, bitch, I made these, man. I'm gonna crush
Right.
it in my hand, you know.
Yeah, that's just awesome.
Well, and then later on, you find out they're full of brains. So whenever you crush
Yeah.
that, it's like it's killed somebody just then. Like it's not just an orb. It's,
And the fact that the tall man has Michael on that table and he cuts his head open and you see that there's a ball in his head.
Mhm.
It's just like, what the heck?
It's like we're playing Ultimate Lobotomy today, starring Michael and Angus Scrimm. You know.
Yeah. I just love it, man. I just love it so much.
The special effects, the gore is and time check. We got 10 minutes, so the gore in part 2 and part 3 was, you know, you ever hear of the 3 bears where it's like too hot, too cold, just right?
Yeah.
Because
right.
man, the the stuff that comes out of the tall man whenever like he gets injured and he's got like the little claw things
Yeah.
popping out of his wounds.
Yeah.
And his eyes exploding and like the yellow blood everywhere. It's just like, dude, this is so cool. I mean, it's not even like gory scary. It's just like, dude, like how much fun would it have been to be on set that day when they're like, all right, push the plunger, But then with the Three Stooges in part 3, where they're just getting more and more. It's like, thanks for the ride, lady, all over again. Like they're just getting splattered and they just keep coming back. I mean, yeah.
I didn't realize till this time around that I watched all 5 films to give myself a refresher for especially the last few, that they introduced the zombie aspect, like the ghoul aspect in the second movie. I didn't realize that until this viewing.
Yeah.
Because they stab the preacher, who's working for the tall man out. He stabs the corpse and he comes back. That's the thing that comes back to get him, to take him to the tall man,
Yeah, man. That the grandpa and grandma scene, right?
Dude, when he stabs, and he turns around, the lady's sitting there looking at him. He's just kind of like, did I do that? It was like a total Urkel moment. Like, you didn't see that, did you?
And the scene that we've seen a million times in other movies where you're in the bed and you roll over and the body is there, Yeah, just so good.
Man, what's his name? The little boy in part 3 with his dad. He's like, dad went nuts, and then mom went down to look, and then he goes down there and opens the thing, and her head's twisted around backwards, and he starts laughing at him.
Oh, it's pretty terrifying, actually. I'm not gonna lie to you.
This is like, whoa, this is not good.
Yeah, Coscarelli just, it all started with the ideas of just writing down things that creeped him out, and somehow fleshing a story out of that. I mean, that it's got such an originality to it that there's nothing else like it. There's really not.
It's some Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
You got all excited a minute ago, so I want to hear what you got to say about that one.
Well, and don't get me wrong, I love Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, it was another movie that gave me the same kind of feels that I got with Phantasm of, I'm watching this and I can't distinguish what is real, what is not. Is it a fever dream? Which the good thing about Nightmare on Elm Street is they tell you these things happen in the dreams. The trick is you can't determine when they're in dream state, when they're not.
Right.
Not really much difference than what's happening in Phantasm, because at the end, we are told, it was all just a dream, right? Just too many similarities, right? There's a scene where Michael is running from the tall man and he gets in some super gooey mud all of a sudden, which is very, very reminiscent to the staircase that Heather Langenkamp is going up, that Nancy's going up. I mean, I did a whole breakdown on the movie of how much it rips off the original Phantasm, and the list goes on. And just the fact of, you think you can kill the bad guy, but really they're ahead of the game. They know how to do all these things that you don't know. Turning your back on evil. If you remember, Michael gets to the point to where it's not real. He sees the lady in lavender and he turns his back on her to get away from her. So there's all those similarities where, we know for, Nancy turns her back on Freddy, and that's how he kind of disappears. The big kicker is the very last scene of both movies, where Michael goes upstairs to pack up his stuff to leave with Reggie. He shuts the door behind him. The tall man is in the mirror. He turns to see the tall man, and some hands just come out of the mirror and grab Michael,
pull him back in.
That's what happens at the end of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Precisely.
Except it's Nancy's mom, right?
there's so much stuff, and you mentioned like a scene by scene breakdown, but I was saying earlier, it's like the dream logic sort of thing.
Yes.
And I think there's something about movies, and I mentioned Jacob's Ladder because Jacob's Ladder is very much like that, where yes, it does follow a plot.
Yeah.
There's points between plot points that aren't part of the plot that are just there, but you don't understand that until the end, right? And so, like with Jacob's Ladder, for example, it's like, okay, then hopefully I'm not spoiling Jacob's Ladder to anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but it's like weird things are happening to him. He's having strange visions and yada yada yada. So then he's going to like the VA, and he's going to the conspiracy guys that are talking about like Agent Orange and how different people have died. And but then at the end, it's revealed that none of that matters because he's been dead on the battlefield the whole time, right? So it's like, but was all of this stuff like, was he envisioning an alternate dimension? Was it just like his hope for what could have been? Like, you leave the film really not realizing what was real, what wasn't. Like, did he really die on the battlefield, or is he just losing mind, or did he leave his soul on the battlefield and he's just been kind of like walking through his life ever since? Like, and so like same thing with like Phantasm is the whole time, if at the end of it revealed that Mike had died in a car accident, I'd have been like, yeah, I pretty much called that from the beginning, because and then whenever he revealed him as an orb in the third one, I was like, that makes sense, because whatever strange dream realm, dimensional, whatever they're doing, you can call it extra dimensional, but the dream realm is just as palpable as a place to operate your story as any place else. And then we have good old Nightmare on Elm Street that kind of accentuates some of these points, I guess.
Yes,
so having seen Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm kind of like, I can pretty much guess that none of this is real at all, and he's in a hospital bed somewhere, and it makes perfect sense.
The whole scenario too of the parents are totally clueless to everything that's going on too.
Well, that's a 70s, 80s thing, though.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, look at the gate. The parents are away for the weekend. He's left with the sister. Their house is getting destroyed by a hell dimension. They're being their beasties. What do you tell the insurance company? Come on, man.
We could do a whole show on the gate, man.
For sure.
What do you think on all this, Gary? I mean, what do you pipe in here a bit?
I can't disagree with you, about being heavy comparison to Nightmare on Elm Street. But then again, if you look on the Cinema Beef doc, you looked at it, Reggie, and you looked at Ricky that called you Reggie. There you go. See, but
hey, I'll take it.
Dreamscape, I think it's Dreamscape, and Nightmare on Elm Street are together on an episode of Cinema Beef coming whenever it's going to come out, and those are very similar. Similar. Making up words now, though. Similar. But yeah, there's a lot of comparisons there. But Phantasm came out, it's very unique. There's a lot of stuff in it that you may not think matters, but in the long run it really does. Like Michael sticking his hand in the box at the psychic, it's all about,
Yeah, when he's sitting there talking to Ozzy Osbourne.
Yes.
That old lady looks like Ozzy sitting there going, oh.
Yeah. It all goes back like if you fear, you're going to feel pain, and is there anything in that box? You don't know, and it's like a reality. And I had to go back to Jacob's Ladder for a quick second. The dance scene with Elizabeth Pena is one of the sexiest and most terrifying things I've ever seen in my life. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
If Phantasm is a strange animal, it's really unique in that way, though, and it's imitated but never really duplicated in the way it does with storytelling. And we didn't talk about the score, but the score, and especially in the first one, is very. If you like Giallis, and it sounds very Gialli-esque, and I never noticed that until just viewing. How many beats it takes from there, like borrows from there, and it's kind of wonderful. And not so much the disco version of the Phantasm theme,
Yeah, when they go to the bar and they're playing the
Yeah.
same theme in the bar. I mean, it's all those little things, man, that subconsciously you're going. It's making it all meld between reality and this fantasy world all at the same time.
Well, it was driving me nuts because like that score is 2 notes different from the Crystal Ship by the Doors. And I'm sitting there being like, I know this, I know this, I know this, I know this. And it finally clicked, and I was like, oh, well, that didn't help. But because the Crystal Ship's a bizarre song.
I got a question, because there's parts of these series that make you laugh out loud, and there's
Sure.
a couple scenes that stick out to me. The one that makes you laugh every time is when Mike is in the cemetery at the same time Jody's in the cemetery with the lady in lavender, and you hear him scream like he screams like a girl, and it's hilarious. Everybody hear that too. But Mike, when Jody pops his head, he's got her panties in his mouth. I can't stop laughing.
What the heck? Yeah.
They probably mostly involve Jody, because Jody has the one scene where Reggie's getting it done, or is he getting it done with Rocky? He just said, "Well, Reggie, we got something to talk about here, brother.
I also do claim that the Crying Game rips off Phantasm too. They just cut the scene out of Jody when he realizes he'd been sleeping with the tall man.
Oh.
Well, he was the lady in lavender.
I love the story that Kat Lester tells about her and her mother seeing the film for the first time in theaters, and the part where her boobs show up, but they're not her boobs. Right. Her mother's like devastated, but she can recognize that they're not her daughter's boobs.
Yeah, there's a ton of great stuff, man. So let's talk about. I know Billy hasn't seen it, but what's your take on Ravager, the last one?
Oh, my take?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to. Well, we're gonna spoil it anyway, but yeah, I think you should watch it at least once, Billy. It's basically, you find out that Reggie is diagnosed with dementia, which I think is a cool twist to the whole story, because he keeps popping in and out of these scenarios in the film. But again, it goes back to the known unknowns. Is this all a story that Reggie is telling because of the disease he has, because of the dementia? Is it literal memories popping back into his head? But the biggest mistake Ravager makes, I think, is it's not directed by Coscarelli. This first one not directed by him, and unfortunately, it hurts the film, because you could tell they went cheap on certain things like the CG blood and the balls. Now, the balls, when they're shown doing stuff like up close, you could tell those are practical. But the ones where you see like them going down the highway, it looks really stupid. Yeah. So that might take you out of the film.
Yeah, it does hurt it, man. And that, I think that's the big drawback, is if the story, to me, if the story had been a bit stronger. I mean, I do like what he was talking about, but it wasn't strong enough for you to kind of overlook the effects enough.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, and that's, again, and it may go back to the fact of this other guy was directing it. It was just, this guy was such a Phantasm fan, and he contacted Coscarelli with this last kind of ditch effort of how do you close it up. So personally, I mean, it's always great to hear they're going to make another one, whatever. But if it would have ended at 4, I think it would have been a better ending.
I think so too. But at the same time, Ravager gives you certain feelings, because I just got done watching 15 years of Supernatural. Okay, and spoilers if you haven't watched it, Sam and Dean both die in the end of Supernatural, and so stupidly, like they have the family that the second family right to kill them off, and they're in heaven and blah blah bullshit. This one, Reggie, unfortunately succumbs to his disease, and there's Mike and Jody by his bedside. Well, the ghosts of them or whatever's going on there, and they literally. The end of the film is them riding up into the sunset with these massive spears in the sky, which tells you that there is no end game. And I'm fine with that. That they're going to go on fighting the good fight in whatever dimension that they're in. And you don't need another movie. You need a Ravager, but you know what? It gave me certain feelings.
Sure.
And certain aspects of it really worked. And unfortunately, those other aspects, like, stuff you mentioned, really didn't work for me or you or most people. I think that Coscarelli, who is a fan's director. You talk to the man for 5 minutes, you realize that he's here for us and nobody else. You know, he makes films that we love. Bubba Hotep, you know, for example, I forgot to mention that Bob Ivy, who plays Bubba Hotep, is in like 2 of these Phantasm films. One is this the cop, the evil cop.
Evil Cop Part 4. Yeah.
But yeah, he makes films for fans, and I think that it really shows on screen. Again, is Beastmaster a great film? No, but he keeps you in it, man, with the real animals and stuff, and you know.
I love Beastmaster. I love Beast. I'm not a fan of the other ones. Part 2, Part 3.
You see, I can't deny Wings Hauser and Sarah Douglas's bad guys, though. They're really great in that second movie.
Well, that's Wings, though, man. He's going to kill it no matter what he's in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and going to Beastmaster, because we never have to stay on topic, you know, but Scott and I were talking about it on Scary Dad the other day, as, you know, it's like I see so often when anybody mentions Beastmaster, they mention it almost with an asterisk, or they've always got to have a qualifier. It's like, it's not a great movie, but it's like, well, I mean, really, you can define great movies with, you know, Scorsese or, you know, Spielberg or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, I think I have more memories and more good times associated with Beastmaster than with, you know, certainly more than like Schindler's List, right? So like the difference between high art and good cinema versus just a damn good movie that was fun. I mean, was it ever meant to be more than it was? You know what I mean? Like, was it Conan? Well, no, but we have Conan for that, so we don't need, you know, we don't need Beastmaster to be Conan.
Conan 2 wasn't Conan either, so.
but you know, Beastmaster is awesome. It's fun. Sure. There's honestly, dude, I don't see really anything wrong with it. I've watched it so many times in my life, and I'm just like, you know, could they have made a better movie with more money? Maybe, but would it be this? Probably not. And I like this, so you know, it's like. Yeah, you can get prime rib, but most people eat hamburgers because they like them. You know.
Well, I really think what they did there is they took Conan and made him more relatable to people our age when it came out, right? So it's more of a teen version of Conan that still resonates. It still works because he's doing the cool things that we all wish we could do, man. Who doesn't want to pet Black Panther or Black Tiger or whatever he is in the movie? They painted him, whatever he is.
Oh, the stories Coscarelli tells about those animals, man, is amazing. They just would not cooperate for nothing.
I mean, who didn't want a Kodo and Podo, right?
I mean, to this day, I still want a ferret. My wife's like, you bring a ferret home, that just tells me we want a divorce. And I'm just like, I want a ferret, man. Ferrets are awesome.
They are filthy creatures, Billy. I'll tell you right now.
Dude, I don't really want one. I want Beastmaster style, where they just kind of hang out in a bag,
right?
Like run along beside me and.
Hey, Kodo, go find my car keys. Yeah, I mean, you know, so I mean, that's that thing is what made that relatable, and I think that's what Coscarelli did so well. And it's almost a thing where you can tell it's his work, you know. John dies at the end.
Yeah,
which is really, I'm really shocked that he didn't decide to direct the last Phantasm movie, because he had just done that one not too long before, which was fantastic. So I don't know. I've always kind of wondered about what was the drawback there.
I think it's a family thing. It's like, you know, because if you see the interviews with them when they get back together again, it's like a family thing. It's because they're that close and knit of a crew to say, okay, I'll help this guy out and make this other Phantasm film because I get to see my friends again. We're all going to work together again, and it was Angus's last ride, but they didn't know that, I'm sure, when they were going to start to make the movie. But it is Angus's last ride, and he's got some great lines. He's got some great lines in Phantasm Ravager. It's just he's used as much as they could use him, and that's unfortunate too. But yeah, he passed, and I got to tell you,
That's the thing that makes that movie kind of difficult because you know they were limited on what they had. And again, it goes back to part 4, right?
Mhm.
I mean, the reason they had this footage and they used it is because he was limited on what he could do.
Yep.
But I will say, as the tall man, he looks scarier to me in Oblivion than in any of them.
Yep.
I mean, because he looks like he's not healthy, you know.
They never say what happens to him, which I love in Oblivion, because he goes through the portal, which he invents, and he comes back as this being. They never said that when he went to their side, he was corrupted by the other side. They never say anything about that. It's just the fact that he was once this nice man, this Jebediah Morningside.
Jebediah Morningside.
When he comes back from the other side, he's something different. They never explain anything. They never explain if it's him that comes back, if it's a double of him that comes back. Nothing is explained, and I freaking love the series for that.
Yeah.
That nothing is explained. It's not put a pretty bow on it. I've heard a lot of people complain about like the ending of like Mom and Dad with Nicolas Cage, but you don't find out what happens if the disease goes away. Well, fudge it. You shouldn't know. Maybe maybe it continues forever and ever and ever. You don't have a pretty bow put on everything for you to say, okay, with this everything's explained to us, we can all go home now, because Phantasm does not do that, and I love it for it because it answers some questions, just enough questions, but it leaves you with some questions too. And I will say, Phantasm 1, is one of the only films in the series where if I'm in my living room watching it or anywhere, I'll turn one scene up a little bit louder than any other film. And that's the porch scene. It does sit here at midnight, and I turn that part up a little bit louder every time. Like double the volume I have it at there, like, because you got to play it loud. And I had a hell of a weekend, a flashback called Flashback Weekend in Chicago, where they all came out and they had a Phantasm concert. I got to see him do it live on stage. You find all this on YouTube, all this Phantasm concert stuff.
Yep.
Look for that. I mean, Angus. It was the end of a Saturday. He signed everybody's autographs. He was freaking exhausted. Went back to his room for half an hour. Came back on stage to stand-up act and sang for the crowd to open the Phantasm concert. And that just shows the resiliency and what a man he was. And they're all great. They're all great, man. I mean, my buddy John Cross, don't shut the frick up about this ukulele I got, which he claims cemented his marriage to his current wife, Kim. This ukulele that he was down the dumps, he got dumped by his girl, crappily like she literally left the house and left him all by himself. But I got him this ukulele from Guitar Center, and I had it signed by Reggie and Jody, Bill Thornberry, and he thought it was like the greatest thing ever because he was so down, but that elevated him, and he still doesn't shut the hell up about it. And I love him for it, like, but John, shut the hell up about the damn ukulele, okay? I'm not that nice of a guy, And I see Ricky's butt. What's up, man?
I wanted to grab this. My pride and joy is I won't even pick up with it.
No, I see part of it.
Anyways, there you go.
There it is.
There it goes. Yes.
It's my the whole cast signed. I'm trying to figure out what year was that, because I was there like either 2008 or 2009.
Right around there,
when they had the Phantasm reunion in Chicago.
Then we did meet each other. That makes me sad.
We must have been at the same time, because everything that you talked about, I was like, hey, I think I remember that. So, but yeah, they all signed this mini poster, and it's one of my pride and joys, man. I just love Phantasm so much. I can technically say that it's my favorite horror franchise. This and Evil Dead, I kind of go back and forth on. There's just something so unique about Phantasm that I just love it, man. The fact that, the scene where it where it all comes together. I mean, like Gary was saying, you got the goofiness of in the first movie where the tall man gets his finger cut off and it turns into that demon fly and all that crazy stuff.
It's so dumb, but I can't stop laughing.
And that's what it's for, right? I mean, it's supposed to entertain you. But then you get the other side of it, of the scene where Michael's in bed and it pans back and the tall man standing at the head of the bed. It's just
so good,
nightmarish. And those two bodies come up out of the grave and grab it. I mean, these are it's just pure nightmare material.
I love the
Then
sound
you go
effects. I love the sound
Yeah.
effects on the Jawas. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, because you're used to seeing. I mean, throw in some Star Wars, but you're used to seeing Jawas and their little like high pitched gibberish, and then these things sound like lions on rabies or just
Like snarls, yeah.
like whoa, man, these things are brutal. And then you shoot them like 4 times, and then they don't stop. You know.
and how about the scene where Michael goes through the portal and sees the other planet? And it's really unlike anything we had ever seen in any kind of movie before, where it's this desert type planet, almost like what we consider Mars to look like. And you got this miles and miles of Jawas in these plastic containers where these things are being born. So shipping their bodies to it's just what a crazy, bat crap crazy idea
Well,
for a movie concept.
That's again one of those situations where if when he says, when you die you come to us, and it's like, you have your concepts of heaven and hell, but if he's got kind of a industrialized dwarf making thing that he makes out of dead people, and then he puts their brains into spheres. I mean, if you think about it, if you're even semi-conscious, that's about as close to hell as you're going to get, and
the tall man's where it's at, man.
Those sorts of things to me are just terrifying. I mean, there's lots of things that are terrifying, but like you say, somebody running around through the woods with a hammer or an axe or something, you're like, okay, well, double tap them, shoot them down,
right.
This guy is not gonna stop, because you don't even know if you're awake or asleep. You don't even know like what reality is, like.
I mean, that's what makes him more of an imposing figure than Freddy Krueger is, that you're not really safe anywhere.
Right.
You like see the way he's sleeping, and then, or is he sleeping? You don't know. It's all the known unknowns, and it's that's what makes it work so much better, I think, than A Nightmare on Elm Street. You compare the two, right? And you really should compare the two, and it's just not. Yeah, it's crazy.
If we could have only got Reggie and John Saxon together as a team, though.
Oh man, it's not to get my blood boiling now. See, it's amazing.
He'd forget to look in the attic, and the tall man would still be up there.
Well, we've made it this the whole episode, and we haven't brought up the car yet.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, the CUDA. Yeah.
I mean, if anything is known about this movie, people always talk about the car, even though it's a different car in pretty much every movie. It's the dream car.
The car crashes are all the same too.
Yeah. So, that's the dream car. I mean, I know people that don't like this movie, but they want that car.
That is a badass car.
Yeah.
I love it when Reggie's trying to get him to sleep in the car so he can go inside and bang the chick. It's just like the little bit of comic relief where he's like, "No, I'm fine." He's like,
"Oh, Michael, give me a break here." Yeah. Reggie becomes that guy, man. I mean, and it's the same thing with the Ash character. I mean, you end up loving these characters so much that, I don't know, when you see Reggie Bannister in anything, you go, "Hey, it's Reggie,"
Well, and I love that how at the end of part 2, basically he gets killed. You're watching him die in the end of part 2. You're like, oh man, that poor dude just can't catch a break. And then now he gets killed. And then he just like gets up at the beginning of part 3. He's like, "Hey, what's up, guys?"
Well, he got stabbed in the first one.
Yeah.
I mean, outside in the wind machine with all the leaves.
It's just like, I'm back. It's all good.
There's a great line at the beginning of part 3 where he finds Mike, and Tall Man, of course, walks up, and then he pulls the pin of the grenade. He goes, 8 seconds to hell, and then real Joel says, "I don't want him in pieces." It's so good,
Oh, come on, man. The 4-barrel shotgun and just blasting Jawas out of the tree. Dude, come on, man. It's just awesome.
Get the funny parts. They fall in the tree. boom, boom, boom. You know, like he hit 3 of them, you know?
Listen, he's got 4 barrels and he shoots once, and then like they fall down one at a time. That's great. And you have to know, like, like setting up the scene. You're like, drop 1, drop 2, drop 3, drop 4.
Yeah. So awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of comedy mixed with a lot of like straight jump scares, horror. I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff in there. I love how they just kind of disregard the chick from part 2, like the blonde chick that's like kind of she dies in that hearse, and then Tall Man just carries her head off, and he's just like,
by the way, here's her head. You know?
Yeah, he's just like, well, you know, toss it in the backpack. Like telling the dwarves, like, let's get back to work.
It's kind of like going from Aliens to Alien 3, right? Because you got Newt, you know, then all of a sudden it's just like,
we just don't need her anymore. Right. They mostly come at night.
Mostly.
So you always kind of wonder too, because the legend is that this guy that plays Michael in the second movie beat Brad Pitt for the role.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you always wonder what this movie would look like with a young Brad Pitt in it.
Brad Pitt was just starting to work back in those days, though, I think.
Yeah.
Like, Cutting Class, I think, was just like his first thing.
Yeah.
Well,
that's an interesting tidbit, you know, of that.
That is interesting. I wonder if it had been one of those situations with like Leprechaun or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where they're like trying to get it from being released or trying to get it unreleased because
right.
You know,
yeah. I don't want that out there. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's so goofy. Like at least Matthew McConaughey has a sense of humor, but Jennifer Aniston's just like no, I want to get rid of this movie. It's like,
no, I think she said in like a recent interview, like she recognizes it and like she didn't have a bad time making it. It's like you shouldn't do that, because a lot of ones that started out in horror films that was their big break, obviously.
Yeah, that's where you start. And it's kind of like going to the hello Sting, you were in the police.
Right.
It's not a bad thing. You know.
Well, yeah, but then you know you look at A-list Hollywood royalty, and look at who all came out of horror movies, and a lot of them did, because that's where you can catch a break. That's where your chops don't have to be that good to get a start in some indie films, and horror movies are generally profitable. So if somebody's off, in the woods shooting a horror movie, you're like, sure, let me get a credit under my belt. And then later on, that's
if you're willing to show a little skin, you're in.
Johnny Depp and that cutoff t-shirt, Nightmare on Elm Street, man, got him.
That's all it took.
So Billy's never seen Phantasm Ravager, so he's never seen the Battle Cuda in action,
right?
Which is one of the banner parts of that film. Yep. Is when Jody shows up in the Battle Cuda, which has Gatling guns and bulletproof covers on it, and it's pretty wild looking, and I gotta say that. And
yeah,
it's a real small part of the movie though, but when it shows up, it's pretty spectacular. It's when the chips are down, here comes Jody with the Battle Cuda,
Yeah, that's the thing about Ravager is, I mean, it had some obvious, paying it for the fans, no doubt about it. I mean, it just doesn't execute it as well as you would have liked. You want it to be the.
There's an amazing line that I was looking for, and I couldn't find it on the internet because IMDb fucking sucks, apparently. It freaking sucks. I'm sorry, family show. Where Tall Man's talking to Reggie and Mike when they're on the other planet, and he basically lays it all out for them by saying, I forget the line, but basically Michael was the chosen one, and Reggie basically he was the thing that was nipping at his boot heels constantly, He delivers the line better than I do, and it's a different line, but it's towards the end, and I think it's one of the great lines out of Angus that they've got out of the whole series, actually, because it kind of lays on the table, like, you know what? Never really wanted you. You're always kind of there, pissing me off. He was always the one that I wanted, and it kind of lays the cards on the table like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Again,
I just
it was all planned out, like you say,
yeah, I think it's a solid series of movies, and you know, I don't know which one. I mean, Ravager to me would be the weakest one, but I've seen way worse sequels to other movies than Ravager. You know, so, I don't know.
If I had to rank them, I think the first one's the tops for me.
Yeah.
I think after that would come Oblivion. I think because I think it's a great companion piece to the first one.
Yeah.
This is hard to put part 3, part 2, and then Ravager. It's so hard to put part 2 towards the bottom, but again, I've watched them so many times to where there's certain things about certain sequels that I think just make them better. And that's just my opinion. That's one guy's opinion. So don't attack me, people. Come on now,
Hey, I'm close to that. I would almost, as much as I like 3, I would just do right opposite. I'd probably do 2 and 3, and then Ravager at the end. But I agree with 1 and Oblivion. I think those two together really give you the nuts and bolts of what this is all about.
Then I have some watching to do. I got two more films to finish the series, but I'm looking at the time. We are about to have to close it down. So
All right.
This has been yet another awesome episode of You Know What's Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to our very special guest. We had 2 guests if you're looking at the screen on the video here. But no, dude, it was awesome to have you on. It was a blast. And anytime you want to come on in the future, shoot us a subject and we'll figure out how to make it happen, because this was a blast. Really enjoyed deep dive into Phantasm.
It's kind of like the Outer Limits. We control the horizontal and the vertical. So,
yes, that's right.
It's
great. Always a blast, man. Always a blast.
Appreciate the spot on here, man. I really appreciate that, and I had a good time talking to you guys too. As this man right here, I sound like I'm not excited, but I am very excited to be here. I'm just that humble,
That's the thing with me, man. It's like, if there's one thing that's probably one of my top characteristics, it's my humility, Like, I put that at the top of the resume, like, humble.
I'm humble, dude.
But no, man, we had a blast, and can't wait to see everybody next week. And I guess until next time, check us out on the Facebook page, sign up for Pizza Day, and we'll see you. we'll see you soon.
Taco Tuesday, huh?
Dude, did you enjoy that one?
Of course.
All right, guys, take care. We'll see you next week.